students, in our last lecture we have studied about Kepler's three laws. Now let us start our today's lecture with topic number 8.3, Universal Law of Gravitation. Now students, observing an apple falling from a tree, Newton was inspired to arrive at an universal law of gravitation, which led to an explanation of the terrestrial gravitation as well as of the Kepler's laws. Students, here terrestrial means of earth or on the earth, phenomena which occur on the earth due to gravitation, that is terrestrial gravitation. Now the observations made by Newton and the related calculation led him to propose the following universal law of gravitation. So students, Newton, from his observations as well as from the calculations which are related to his observations, and also by using Kepler's laws, he stated the universal law of gravitation. According to statement, every body in the universe attracts every other body with a force which is directly proportional to the product of the masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Means, if there are two particles having masses m1 and m2, and if they are separated by distance r, then the force acting between these two particles is directly proportional to the product of their masses and it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. So this is the mathematical form of Newton's universal law of gravitation. Now students, here this proportionality sign is there. When we remove this proportionality sign, we put a constant g, and this g is known as universal constant of gravitation. Now from this formula, if we make the subject g and then if we obtain the unit of g, then it will be Newton meter square per kg square. So this is the unit of universal law of gravitation. So students, no need to remember this unit. If you know this formula, then easily you can get the unit of g as well as the dimensional formula of g. Dimensional formula of g is m raised to minus 1, l raised to 3 and t raised to minus 2. Now value of g was obtained to be 6.67 into 10 raised to minus 11 in SI unit system, means this is the unit. So now let us obtain the mathematical form of this universal law of gravitation in a vector form. This is an important theory. Students, here a three-dimensional coordinate system is shown. This is x-axis, this is y-axis, and this is z-axis. Here at these 2 points 1 and 2, two masses are kept. At point 1, mass m1 is kept, and at point 2, mass m2 is placed. distance between these two masses is given by vector r12. Also, the position vector r1 shows the position of mass m1, and this position vector r2 shows the position of mass m2. Now suppose we are interested in finding the force on this particle at point 2 due to this particle at point 1. Students, we know that gravitational force is always attractive in nature, and we are interested in finding the force on this mass m2 due to this mass m1. And so, due to that attractive force, the force on this particle at point 2 will be towards m1. So this is the direction of force, and this is the position vector r12. It shows the position of this particle from this first particle. Because we want to find the force on this particle at point 2 due to this particle which is at point 1, and so the position vector which shows the position from this point 1 to 2 is vector r12. Now, according to universal law of gravitation, the force acting on particle 2 due to 1 is symbolically represented as F21 in vector form. And according to the law, it is G m1 m2, means product of the masses and square of the distance between them, that is r12 square. And as force is a vector quantity, here we have to put a unit vector to show the direction. Otherwise, if we have taken simply magnitude of this force, then this is not required. Only this is the magnitude. But here we are obtaining vector form. That's why, as force has some direction, so this direction is given by this unit vector r12. Now students, you can see here that this vector, unit vector, is having negative sign. It is because the direction of force and the direction of vector r12, they are opposite to each other. As the force is attractive, we know that force is towards this direction, and position of this particle on which we are finding the force is shown by this vector r12. So these both are in opposite direction, and so there is a negative sign. Now, unit vector, any unit vector can be represented as a vector divided by its magnitude. This we have studied in chapter number 4. Now, next step, taking this minus sign here, the above formula can be written as this. Now students, if we use unit vector r12 is equal to vector r12 upon its magnitude, then in place of this, when we put this, we will get this next equation. You can see here it is a square, and now it is here cube. Why? It is because in place of this unit vector, what we have placed? Vector r12 upon its magnitude. So already here there was r12 square, and one r12 is multiplied, so it is r1 cube, and what is remained? Vector r12, that is here. Now this vector r12 in terms of its position vectors of particles can be written as r2 minus r1. Once again students, look at the figure. This is position vector r12. This is the head of this vector and here it is a tail. So we can write this r12 is equal to head minus tail. Now this head is represented by which vector? It is represented by vector r2. You can see from the origin the position of this point 2 is represented by this vector r12. So it is r2 minus, so head minus tail, and tail is represented by which vector? By vector r1 from the origin. So r1. So we can write vector r12 is equal to r2 minus r1. Now students, as I said, negative sign is because the force and the position vectors, they are in opposite direction. Also negative sign represents that the force is attractive in nature. Now next, unit vector r12 is equal to minus unit vector r21. Students, you can see here this is r12 and here it is r21. So both are mutually opposite. Both are unit vectors. Their magnitude is 1 only. But as this is r12 and this is r21, they are opposite to each other. So it is clear that in place of r12 unit vector, we can write unit vector r21 but with negative sign. And so here in this equation, in place of unit vector r12, if we will put minus r21 unit vector, then this negative sign and this negative sign will cancel out and we will get the equation f21 is equal to gm1m2 upon r21 square and unit vector r21. You can see the negative sign was removed from here. Also students, magnitude of these two vectors will be same, means the distance from 1 to 2 is shown by vector r12. Similarly, distance from 2 to 1 can be shown by r21, but as a magnitude the distance is same, and that's why in terms of magnitude both these r12 and r21 are equal, but in terms of vectors they are opposite, because in vector even the direction is involved. So finally we obtain this equation. Simple, you can remember that as here it is 2 1, you have to write here 2 1 and here also 2 1, but here you can write 2 1 or 1 2 because this is the magnitude only. Similarly, if we want to find the force on m1 due to m2, then we can write force on particle 1 due to particle 2 as f12 vector, which is equal to gm1 m2 upon r12 square and unit vector r12. The formula is not different. You can compare both these formulas. here the force is on second particle due to first particle. Similarly, we can write the force on first particle due to second particle. So from these two equations 2 and 3, it is clear that force on 2 by 1 and force on 1 by 2 are mutually opposite, and this shows the Newton's third law. They are opposite forces, but their magnitudes are same. Hence, we can say that vector F12 and vector F21 are equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. So students, we obtained Newton's universal law of gravitation for system of two particles. But if more than two particles are given in a system, then also we can apply the universal law of gravitation to find force on any one particle. Here in figure there are four particles shown. So we can say that it is a system of four particles. Now suppose we want to find the force on this first particle. Then it is clear that force on this particle is due to this second particle, as well as force on this particle is due to this third particle, and the force on this particle is due to this fourth particle also. So it is clear that the force on this first particle is due to all the particles surrounding it. So now to find the force on this first particle, we can write vector F1. Vector F1 means force on the first particle. So that force is due to second particle also, which is represented by force on 1 by 2, plus due to third particle the force is represented by F13, and due to fourth particle that force is represented by F14 in vector form, and all these forces are added. So we can get the resultant force on the first particle. Students, in figure you can see this is the direction of force on first particle due to second particle. This is the direction of force on first particle due to third particle, and this is the direction of force on first particle due to fourth particle, and result of all these three forces in vector form gives the resultant force on the first particle. Now after this we can easily write vector F12 as gm1 m2 upon r12 square and unit vector for direction. So this is according to universal law of gravitation. Similarly, we can write for F13 and then for F14. So in this way we can find the force on any one particle due to other particle. Now students, I have written here that force on any one particle due to other particles of a system means it is an extended body. Any body is made up of many particles, so we can consider the system of particle as an extended body. Now example number 8.2. Here given that on the three vertices of an equilateral triangle ABC, equal masses are kept. So this is an equilateral triangle, and on its vertices equal masses are kept, and G is a centroid, and at this point 2m mass is kept. Now we want to find the force on this particle which is at point G due to rest of the particles. Rest of the particle means due to particle at point A, particle at point B, and particle at point C. So what is the resultant force at point G that is to be obtained? Now students, again it is a system of particles, and so to find the force on the particle at point G, we can write Fg is equal to Fga plus Fgb plus Fgc, means force on this particle at point G is due to particle at point A, which is denoted by Fga. Similarly, force on this particle at point G is due to this particle at point B, denoted by Fgb. And due to this particle at point C, the force on this particle at point G is denoted by Fgc, and adding all these three forces we can find the resultant force on G, and so we have written this equation. Now students, it is clear that as G is the centroid, the distance from the vertexes, this distance is distance AG, distance BG, and distance CG are equal. Let us denote that distance by r, and that is given that that distance is equal to 1 meter. It is given in the statement. Also, the force due to these two particles will be equal to the force due to particle at point G and particle at point B. Also, the force is equal to the particle at point G and at point C. That means all these three forces are equal in magnitude. Why? It is because you can see here that if we consider these two particles, then here also mass 2m, here mass m, and the distance is r. Once again, if we consider these two particles, then once again mass is 2m and m, and again distance is r only. Also, for these two particles, the force is again 2m and m, and the distance is again r. So these three forces are equal in magnitude, and that's why I have written that magnitude of the forces due to the particles at point A, B, and C are equal to the particle which is at point G, and that is given by G mass at point G, mass at point vertex, and the distance between them. So here this is due to universal law of gravitation, and all these forces are same only. So let us denote that force by F, because all are equal. Now here simplifying this, we will get this force is equal to 2gm square. Value of r is given 1, so 1 square is equal to 1, so there is no need to write 1 in the denominator, and in the numerator what is remained? 2g, m into m is m square, so 2gm square. Now magnitude of all these three forces are same, and that we have denoted by F. So taking that common thing, magnitude, outside, what is remain in the bracket? So in the bracket only directions are remain, because magnitudes of these forces are same but the directions are different, and the directions are shown by these unit vectors. Next, here unit vectors are given. So for these unit vectors, if we want to write this as a vectors, then we know that any unit vector can be represented as its vector divided by its magnitude. Here I have given an example for unit vector RGA. So unit vector RGA is vector RGA upon its magnitude. Magnitude means RGA. This is the magnitude. But we know that RGA is equal to R and R is equal to 1 only. So finally we can write that unit vector RGA is equal to vector RGA here. And so for all other unit vectors also we have written that. Now students, about these vectors, let us consider this vector RGA and also look at the figure. Vector RGA is equal to RA minus RG. But as this point G is taken at the origin of the XY coordinate system, so its position will be 0. So this is equal to 0. So what is remained? Vector RA. Means RGA, vector RGA can be written as RA, as this point G is taken at the origin. Similarly, other vectors also. So in next step I have written the same thing, that vector RGA is equal to vector RA, and the position of this vector RA is 0 1. Why it is 0 1? Let me show you from the figure. This is point A and its position is shown by which vector? Vector RGA. But we know that RGA is equal to RA only, as G is taken at the origin. So now RA is equal to what? So this point A is lying on the y axis. So its x coordinate is 0 and its y coordinate will be this distance from the origin, and this distance is nothing but it is r only. And what is r? R is equal to 1. That's why we can write 0 comma 1. So this 0 comma 1 shows the position of this point A. Similarly, we will write the position of point B and point C. So RGA is equal to RA is equal to 0 comma 1. Similarly, RGB is equal to vector RB, and that is equal to this. Now let us see from the figure. This is vector RGB, and we know that RGB is equal to RB, means it is the position of this point B. Now for this vector, it makes an angle 30 with the x-axis, but this is the negative direction of x-axis, and so its x component, this vector, its x component will be r cos 30, and its y component will be r sin 30. But we know that r is equal to 1 only. So what is cos 30? Cos 30 is root 3 by 2, but it is towards the negative x direction, that's why it is minus. So x component obtained is minus root 3 by 2. And now about this y component, which is r sin 30, but value of r is 1 and sin 30 is 1 by 2. But again, this is towards the downward direction, that is towards negative y direction, and that's why it will be minus. So we obtain x coordinate and y coordinate, and that I have written here. Minus root 3 by 2 comma minus 1 by 2. Finally, vector RGC is equal to vector RC is equal to, in bracket, root 3 by 2 comma 1 by 2, but negative. This is x coordinate and this is y coordinate. Now once again look at the figure. So position of this point C, once again this is the vector, so its x component will be r cos 30 because this angle will be 30, and its y component can be given as r sin theta, that is 30 degree. But here this is towards positive x direction, so this x component will be positive, but y component is once again towards downward direction, that's why it is negative. And so here you can see x component is positive and y component is negative. So we obtained the positions for all these vectors. I have shown this method also, that r cos 30 is root 3 by 2 and r sin 30 is 1 by 2, and why there is negative or positive signs, that I have explained you. Now putting these values in equation number 2, that is values of these vectors in this equation, here we get force on G is equal to force which was taken out common, and putting the value of these vectors, you can see once again this is kept here, this is kept here, and this is kept here. Now x components, these are the x components, so adding all these x components comma adding all the y components, we get this next step. Then simply add this, you can see here this is minus root 3 by 2 and this is plus root 3 by 2, so it will give us 0. So x coordinate is 0. Now check for this y coordinates, 1 and this minus 1 and this minus 2, they will give us minus 1. So here it is 1, and for this minus 1 by 2 and minus 1 by 2 it is minus 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0. So we get y component also 0. And so finally we can say that if this 0 is multiplied to f, then the result is 0. So force at point G due to the particles at point A, B and C will be 0. So students, we obtained force at point G equal to 0 due to these particles at point A, B and C. One more method is there by simply adding head to tail of these vectors. Students, this is the force on G by A, this is the force on G by B and this is the force on G by C. Magnitude of all these forces are same only, that also we know. So if we join head to tail of these vectors, I have taken this vector first, then if I take this vector and if I put the tail of this vector on the head of first vector, then situation will be like this. Then third vector, this, if I put the tail of this vector on the head of this vector, then I'll get a closed figure. And if by adding head to tail of the given vectors, if it forms a closed figure, then the result of these vectors must be 0 only. And so directly also we can obtain this. Also one more thing is, the center of mass of all these three particles will be at point G only. And if we put any particle at point G, which is the center of mass of the remaining particle, then force on that particle which is kept at the same point will be 0 only. So directly also we can get the answer without calculation. But students, remember, at the vertices equal masses should be there, otherwise not. So we have obtained for A. Now for B. Now here in B, the situation is changed. At point A, in place of mass m, mass 2m is kept. That is, mass is double than the earlier. Earlier here at point A, there was mass m. Now double the mass was there, that is 2m is there. And now we want to find the force on G. So students, it is clear that earlier only this mass m was there, so force was 0. Now one extra mass was added, and so the force on G is due to this extra mass only, which is at point A. So we can write in this way, that the extra mass at point A is now m, and at point G the mass is 2m, and we want to find this force. So in that case, force acting at point G, let us denote it by Fg dash. Then that is force on G in first case, and force on G by A due to that extra mass which I have shown here in figure. But we know that force on G in first case was 0, and so force on G by A due to this excess mass here, which is m only now, that is given by G mass at point G, excess mass at point A, upon distance between them is r square, and this is the direction of force RGA, which is from G towards A. So this is the direction, but r is equal to 1 only, so this is 1 square, that is equal to 1 only, so no need to write in the denominator. So what is remained? 2g m into m square, so 2gm square. But here this force is in a vector form. So this is the magnitude and its direction is in the upward direction, that is towards y axis. So it is shown by unit vector j, because unit vector j represents the positive y direction. So here this unit vector rga is nothing but it is unit vector g, which shows y axis. Now there are two special cases for a spherical shell. Spherical shell means a hollow sphere. Now students, it says that if there is a spherical shell of mass m, and if we place any other point mass outside this sphere, you can see this mass is placed at point P, which has a distance r from the center of the sphere. So it is outside the sphere. So in that case, force acting due to this spherical shell on this mass m, which is kept at point P, is given by Fp is equal to g, mass at point P, mass of the spherical shell upon distance between them. So it is simple. By using this universal law of gravitation, we can write this. Students, the whole mass of this spherical shell is imagined to be concentrated at its center of mass, and so distance is considered from the center of the sphere. Now if we consider a particle inside the spherical shell, now you can see we have taken a point P inside the shell and the mass is kept there. So in that case, what will happen? The force acting at this point will be always zero. So students, remember this thing, because when any particle is inside the spherical shell, we cannot consider that the center of mass of this spherical shell, that is m, is concentrated at this point. It is only considered at this point when we choose any point outside. In that case only the whole mass is considered at its center of mass, otherwise not. So here, remember, if any particle is kept inside the spherical shell, anywhere inside it, then the force acting on that particle at point P will be 0. So here the condition is given that distance r is less than the radius, and if this r is less than radius, then definitely that particle will be inside the shell. And here the condition was r is greater than or equal to r, means if r is greater than this r, that shows that the particle is outside the spherical shell, and if we consider r equal to r, then that particle will be on the shell. So if it is on the shell, then also the force will act, which is given by this formula. But if the particle is inside the shell at any point, then the force will be always 0. Now about topic number 8.4, the gravitational constant. We know the gravitational constant is g. Now students, the value of g was first determined by an English scientist named Cavendish. He obtained the value of g by doing experiment in 1798. Mathematically, by using the formula, the value of G was already obtained, but by using experiment, Cavendish first time obtained the value of G.